I was walking down the street to a family member's house, and this family member appeared to have it all. The hair, the friends, the house, and was part of the experience I had as a child. And I remember walking over there, and the thought came to me, you have nothing to be jealous about. Everybody has their own mission in life, their own experience. And, it hit me as if matter of fact, it's like, well, that's it. It's, I have to live my life and what God gave me. And on Fridays is a day that I've selected, to pretty much throw out the trash. And when I say trash, I'm talking about things that are no longer needed, right? Things that may be holding you back. And often, when we're talking about purpose and fulfilling our divine purpose, we have these distractions, right? We have where people are doing well. And I've heard many people talk about it, from writers to athletic people, football players, basketball players, and that you are so on somebody else's lane. You're like, trying to be like them, desire. And there's nothing wrong with seeing the good in people and wanting to mimic that, as long as you're doing it your way and in your life. But often we may look at someone and compare ourselves and say, hey, I don't have the car they have. I don't have the wit they have. I don't have the money they have. Yeah, good for them. They didn't grow up in my environment, my poor environment, my house, without having a father, or not having a mother there, or, feeling like I was picked on, or I was bullied a lot in school. We make people seem so much higher than we are by comparing our lives to them, that we have not allowed that room for us to grow, for us to unite with this power that is in us, that is here to help us fulfill our purpose, fulfill that specific mission that you have been given to do, the specific lessons that you have to learn, the specific environment that is going to be that medium to kind of help you grow and decide, okay, this is not how I want my life to be. I know there's another way. I know there's another path. And jealousy, just like, others that I'll talk about on here when we talk about shame and guilt and fear, jealousy can be that distraction for us where we're not seeing things clearly, where we're so in somebody else's lane. My mama would always say, everybody has a part to play and to get in your lane. If you can think about it, if we're trying to drive somebody else's car, we're sitting in our car and we're trying to reach over and drive somebody else's car, we're going to crash. We're not going to go, sailing down that road that will bring the abundance, that will bring the happiness, that will bring the joy and the peace and the confidence that is within us. We're not bringing that forth because we're so busy comparing ourselves to others, so busy hating on, quote unquote, hating somebody else's life because what they have and what we don't have. And if we can just focus, even that day, that moment, it was like, well, I have to live my life. I have to live whatever this is that has been given to me, this gift, my gifts, find out what I'm here for, and to move forward. Jealousy, like all other emotions, I tell you, they're so tiring. They waste a lot of energy. They waste time. Instead of us focusing on our lives, we're focused on somebody else's and how we hate them and don't like them, and we're feeling bad about ourselves, our self-esteem, and it's a waste of money. Because often, when we're jealous of people, that we try to be like them, but it's not the be like as is in And admiration is more like the be like, as in, I'm gonna I'm gonna do it better than you. This whole competition thing. And there's really no competition when you think about it. If everyone has their own mission, and that was the thought that day. If we have our own mission, then what is the use of jealousy? What is the use of competition? Because it can become so unhealthy, and you've heard it where people sabotage others, whether they push them, kick them, whether they lie on them, whether they kill them, and that it can drive you literally insane. It can drive you literally unlike yourself, because you've allowed this emotion, these feelings, to master you instead of you mastering them. And when you think about that, it's like, wow, it's such a revelation that there is no need to be jealous of anyone, because no one's life is the same. And it opens the door. If you really think about, why am I here then? What am I here to do? And you really start opening a door with open-ended questions. And you start thinking about, your brain starts working for you, right? Because our body is our vehicle for our divine message. And it is here to help us serve, to help us serve. And so you start getting into, what are my gifts? What am I really good at? And to be in the zone of that. And you've heard of people being so much in the zone, they're not thinking about what anybody else is doing. They're so focused on what they are here to do. They're so focused on their gifts. They're so focused on their tasks and their lives that they don't even hear opposition. They don't even see competition with another, because what they're really doing is competing with the highest version of themselves. They're lifting themselves up to that level. Instead of with jealousy, you're actually putting yourself down. When you see somebody as greater than you, you're putting yourself down, because there's no one really greater or lesser than you. No one. We don't look at our circumstances. I mean, we do when we're trying to change our behaviors. But to compare people based on their circumstance, we don't know what their lives are supposed to do, what they're supposed to do here. We don't know. We don't know. Everybody has a part to play. And if we begin to really focus on our gifts, our talents, how our experiences align with that, and how they can bring out the best in us, and then other people see that and they start inquiring, wow, if you have that question, you're not going out there, stealing from others or beating others up. There is another way. I don't have to kill. I don't have to destroy. I don't have to lie. I don't have to sabotage to get my way. I just need to focus on me. I need to focus on this gift. I need to focus on these talents. I need to focus on my earthly journey to bring out the best in me. So it goes both ways. Not only are we not comparing ourselves with others, but we're also too being that role model that when others see us and say, hey, what really, sparked you? What really, got you moving in your life? What are you doing to help your children to move in their lives? Are you telling them to be better than such and such? To hate them because they have more than you? Or are you giving your children excuses to say, hey, don't, because they came from a prestige family, that's the reason why they have that. There could be something to that, but it's not about debating whether something is true or not. It boils down to, where are you spending your energy? Where are you spending your time? Where are you spending your money? Where are you spending your brain? These thoughts. Are you focused on someone else's life? Or are you focused on your life? And I truly believe that if we start doing that more, first it always is, and I was thinking about Michael Jackson, he had it right with the song, The Man in the Mirror. Any change that we make is always going to start with us first, right? Individually. And then that change, often our children see it. We talk about it. Who we are, we often talk about it. We're not just with our um, nonverbal, our nonverbal as well as our verbal comes from what we believe, comes from those emotions and feelings that we carry, comes from our truths. And so if we are focused on what somebody else is doing and how they have it better than us, then we're going to feed that on to our children. We're going to cultivate their minds full of jealousy and envy, right? And hatred and divisiveness. Because we are our children's teachers. We are their primary teachers, the ones they look up to, the one they often want to be like, and just encouraging them that, you are here for a divine reason. There's something about you that one, our creator wanted you here this lifetime. And that will get us excited, our children hopefully excited about it. Oh boy, I'm here. What do I have to give? Who am I? What am I going to do? And so remember, when we talk about creating a generational love cycle, it is the opposite of pain. It is the opposite of jealousy, where we're not envious of others. We're more in tune with who we are and making the best of the situations, the circumstances that we are in. We're teaching others that you don't have to project your pain on others because you're not happy or you're not satisfied with your life. It's quite the opposite. That we can use this mind, this heart, we can use the source that we have, infinite intelligence, and tap into that consciousness and say, okay, who am I? What am I here for? And how do I best get it done this lifetime? And as we continue to work on ourselves as parents, as individuals, as spirits clothed in human dressings, we feed that mindset onto our generation. We cultivate a healthy mind, a healthy self esteem, and not a false one out of illusion, out of building something because I tore yours down, because I was jealous of you. Because, and I just heard it again. My son was at karate last night. Because whatever you train your mind to believe, whatever you believe, your body often follows. So when I talk about nonverbal and verbal communication, that we're feeding not only to ourselves, but also to generations to come. And so we have the ability to stop the cycle of pain. And as you know, and I'm just not talking about physical pain. I'm talking about this mental pain that we're carrying around. Mental health diagnosis, where we get anxiety and get depressed, that inner sadness, extreme anxiety because we're scared of our future and what if and what not, and I'm not doing as well, and why is that other person doing it? We're constantly feeding those diagnoses, and we need to starve them. We starve them by being ourselves. We starve them by realizing that we have something to add to this world. We starve them by becoming more of ourselves and less concerned about what others are doing and how they're doing it on a level that we're anxious, but more on a level of, okay, knowledge. I'm going to get the knowledge. I'm thankful for them. I'm grateful for them. I appreciate all the work they've done. And I'm going to take what I've put in many of my writings. I'm going to take the good stuff and I'm going to use it, not for envious, but as an appreciation of what the other person has done. And what kind of world would that be? What will we do to these children that are out there with the unhealthy competition, the jealousy? What will we do with the adults that have that? One thought, you guys, can break the cycle of pain. One thought, you guys, can create a cycle of love. One thought can bring unity instead of divisiveness, instead of jealousy. This is Tamika Chambers with Create a Generational Love Cycle. I hope this has been beneficial for you, this podcast, and it's healing from the inside out. And I'm starting to take those emotions and feelings and just start digging into them. One of the things that I didn't mention during this podcast, and I said I have to be better about it because I often go to the Bible. And I tell you, the more and more I read it as an adult, I read it once as a child when I was about 10 years old. And I've been reading it several times. But the more and more I read it, the more I find a lot of wisdom in that. And I know this is not about trying to get you to read the Bible. It's all about sharing my thoughts on this podcast. And I actually read this morning, First Corinthians chapter 3, where it says about jealousy. And it says, it's talking about that you are still of the world when you are jealous. And when I think of that, I think about, okay, if we're not jealous, that means we're of this spiritual world. We have a spiritual awakening when we don't allow jealousy within our hearts, because we know that every life has purpose. So in the Bible, it talks about jealousy and it talks about being of the world, and that's where it comes from, because we're so into the world and what other people are doing instead of really digging, going within and seeing, what am I here for? What light? What darkness do I need to shine my light in? What area? Is it music? Is it dancing? Is it teaching? Is it writing? Is it coaching? What area am I here to shine that light and that no one else can do? And that's a wonderful thing. Wonderful thing. I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care of yourself. You are worth every bit of energy, money, and time to find out who you are and what you're here to do. Every bit of it. And you are worth the happiness to really feel just good about the work that you're doing, the self esteem, the right self esteem, the right mindset, the right work. And not just doing it for other people, but doing it because it is part of your blueprint. It is part of who you are. Okay, I'm going to end now. I'll check with you guys later. As you know, Wednesdays I do the seeds we plant. And on Fridays, it's about taking that trash out. And I'm starting to get into specifically some of that stuff that we need to empty out of ourselves. And the best way to do that is to realize that you are unique in every sense of the word, a divine mission with divine gifts and talents. And you have every right to express those talents and those gifts here on earth, every right to reflect the truth that made us. I'll talk to you guys soon.